are not good enough. So we don't want to abandon lean, and we don't want to replace it. We want to evolve lean. We want to add some things to it that we feel are missing. So, industrialization, the Industrial Revolution, right? We come up with a mechanistic paradigm. The humans are there to serve the machines, to keep them running, to repair them. Maybe the lucky few to redesign them a little bit. But the humans are there to serve the machines, not to be engaged, not to be innovative, not to have passion, right? Go to work, have passion about serving the machines. Not going to happen. So we evolved, right? We started to look at W. Edwards Deming and a few of the others. We have Lean and Six Sigma. And they said that there's more. And that more is the processes. We started changing, right? Lots of, you go through, every country goes through this factorization, industrialization, and then you go to a service culture, right? So we started looking at services. And in the mechanistic paradigm, we had the basic needs taken care of. We had safety in our huge brick castles of factories. And then we started getting social. We started looking at processes. We started looking at the things that went to people, the value. So we began to recognize that we needed to add change management. Because when you start to go through this mechanistic paradigm and try to evolve it, you have to add in the human aspect. And so we began to recognize that the results were heavily dependent on the acceptance of the quality of the solution. Lean and Six Sigma were giving us high-quality solutions, and they're not getting adopted. So we don't get results. I'm kind of running through these concepts quickly, so we'll be able to talk about this more later. I'm trying to, what I call, connect the dots for you. Connect the dots the way we connected the dots in the leadership team, and arrived at this. So we've been incorporating these change management principles, adding people into the equation. So we start to add things like, we start to look at teams and groups and organizations. And we apply things like Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, grief cycles, to helping teams to change. We look at teams as forming, storming, norming, and performing, right? And lots of other tools to help people through the change, right? So it starts to begin to look like the birth of a child, growth, change, maturity. Organizations, teams, groups, organizations start to look like people, start to look like human development. Look at Facebook, Google, Amazon. Their parents, with their original vision, have watched their organizations grow, change, maybe grow and change and mature into something they didn't deserve in the first place. They're certainly not what they were when they started. Right? And sometimes you can even get an organization acting like a teenager and rejecting its parent. Look at Steve Jobs and Apple. Right? Apple had to mature. Apple rejected Steve, and then they had to mature to have him back. And so, this is our journey of whining about the problem and then coming up with a solution. And that solution, that missing piece there, is purpose. That's the self-actualization part of your Maslow pyramid. We want to add meaning and purpose back into work. Without meaning, purpose, you don't have engagement. You don't have passion. And you don't have agility. You constantly fight the culture. Culture eats strategy for lunch. So, what do we do with this? So here's the missing piece of the puzzle. That is context. So, Norman is going to describe the living organization model and the ARC concept. Activities, relationship, context. So we've reached for perfection of the activities. And we started to add in relationship, but we've been missing context. What's the soulful purpose behind what we do? Why are we here? So we're reaching for something more. We've been reaching since the industrial age for something more. And we need to continue to reach for something more. So if you want to adopt a solution, you have to have acceptance. In the same way that lean goes to the Gemba to find out how the work is really done, we need to go to the human involvement. We need to go to the context, the purpose, and see how that's done in a living organization. In the same way that we see a lot of the startup cultures, they start with context. They say, what's the impact I want to make on humans? What's the impact I want to make? What's the purpose? What do I want to do? Then they go to relationship. What's our relationship with the customers? How can we help them to tell us what we need? What's value to them? The internal relationships happen from there. You have an idea, a passion, like a cellular organism, you start to get passion attracted to that. And that organism, that organization becomes larger. The activities naturally follow from that. If you know the impact that you want to have, if you know what you want to do, the relationships will develop, the passion will be there, and the activities will naturally come up. If I want to do this, if I want to make people's lives easier at this, and I'm going to talk to those people, and I'm going to gather passionate people, then you're going to have the activities come from there. So, we're not going off the edge of the world. Norman is going to show you by example, in applying this practically and seeing successes over the past 10, 20 years, that the earth is round, we're not going to sail off the edge, and that this ARC model does work. And that's what we feel is missing from, in addition to the lean, not instead of. Lean methodologies are really excellent, and we've been adding to it. This is the evolution of lean. So this is an invitation today. We're not going to talk about the tools or the processes. We're going to talk about what do we want to do with this? What does this look like to us? What does engagement, passion, and participation from you look like for this? And go down this road, this experimental road, to see how it works. So Norman is going to give you some background on his.
Good morning. Thank you, Ernest. And I really want to say thank you to the Lean community, and especially the leadership team. As I said earlier in my introduction, my passion for over 30 years now, because I've led organizations and because I have struggled with the implementation of all the latest, greatest management theories that professors and consultants would bring to an organization, from high-performance teams and total quality management. I have to admit, I'm that old. I remember TQM and quality circles and continuous improvement, all the precursors to what we now call lean. And to watch people get really excited about them, and it goes nowhere. I kept asking the question, why? Why does this not happen? These are great ideas. Intellectually, everybody's nodding their heads, everybody loves it, and nothing's happening. Well, Ernest actually laid the foundation for why that's true. We live in a paradigm. How many people know what a paradigm is? Everybody's pretty much knowledgeable about it, right? Here's the problem with paradigms, and Joel Barker said this a long time ago. You're so embedded in the paradigm, you don't even know you're thinking that way. Fundamental power and flaw of a paradigm. Paradigm helps you organize your world, and it limits your world. So every time we have a new idea, and I'll use lean as an example, we think of it mechanistically, because that's our paradigm. How do you get things done? If I was to ask you, how would you improve your business, you'd probably list all the things you had to do. So if I was to write on here, how do you get results? You'll probably go immediately to your activity. And to really hone your results, you're going to hone or improve or optimize your activity. Get out all the wasted steps. Makes sense, right? So you'll set your goals, you'll establish your steps, you'll hone, refine your steps, and you will get results. But we don't do things alone, do we? And how many people have worked with people that you went into conflicts with?
Yes.
Yes? And what does that do to your activity? It kind of slows it down, right? Now, how many people have worked with people where the efforts are just so effortless and things, right, you're nodding your heads. And what does that do to the activity? Right? So, if you multiply activity by the nature of the relationships, and I consider it geometric because it has such a huge impact on how I get things done, well, that's important. And we've all talked about it. High performance teams, synergy, all those things, this is nothing new. But when it comes to doing lean, or any activity improvement or results improvement, where do we go? Right back to the activity. Even when we think about how to create high performance team, you read almost all of the books on creating high performance teams, and it'll tell you what activity to do to get them. But what is teaming? So there's a great book, by the way, called Teaming by, and I forgot the name off the top of my head. Teaming, it's a great book. It talks about teaming as a verb, not team. Because what is teaming? It's a relationship game. So is relationship about activity? It's about communications, it's about feeling, all that soft stuff that nobody knows what to do with, except maybe a few psychiatrists, right? And maybe even they don't know what to do with. And so we are leading teams activity-based. Why does it not work? When was the last time you tried to lead your relationship by what they do? Maybe you should listen better, empathize, have connection, all that kind of stuff. Right? But we don't do that in business, relationship. There's a third element. Why are we doing this in the first place?
Right.
Why are we even here? I mean, like, I really want to build forests. Why am I here talking about lean? If I wasn't passionate about what I'm doing, why am I even here? As an executive for HP, I spent a lot of time learning how to manage, and I learned a lot by really screwing it up a lot. And at the end of my career as an executive, I had terminated, I don't know, at my level, probably 2 dozen people, maybe more. And I never fired one in the last few years. Earlier on, I fired a lot. Why didn't I fire anybody? Because I'd ask them the fundamental question. If your performance isn't what it wants, and I'm giving you all the resources, you probably don't want to be doing this job. Why are you here? And when they seriously engage that conversation, they go, I don't know, I don't really want to be here. Great, how can I help you? Find something you really love. Makes everybody's life much easier. And then think about what happens. Ernest talked about the power and passion of the startups. I was involved with the venture capital world during the big internet boom, and everybody was, people were starting companies, and everybody says, oh, I need money because I got to hire all these people, and yet you had all these great startups hiring all these wonderful people, paying them nothing, making them sleep on the floor in a warehouse someplace. And they worked a regular job to pay their bills, and then they come at night and work all night. Where was that coming from? Where did that, they weren't being paid to do it. They were passionate about what they were doing. Look at all the nonprofits in the world. Look at the hours people spent. Look at how people go from the day-to-day job, come out really exhausted, and they go into nonprofits doing it for free. And they're excited, energized. That's context. When you get people aligned based on passion, that's context. And it is absolutely the most powerful leverage factor you could have in anything. And without it, I don't care what activity you do, it's never going to work. Relationships will fall apart. Activity will be ho-hum. And you can try to motivate by incentivizing all you want. That's an activity-based solution. Let me pay you more. Let me stimulate your activity more. And it'll go nowhere. This is the foundation of my book, The Living Organization. It goes into it a lot more detail. It talks about a lot of subtleties and all of that. When I said I was honored to be invited to be part of the Lean Portland group, it's because my passion is to transform organizations, to bring out the dignity, the creative spark of the human spirit. And I spent so many years not doing it, and all of a sudden here's a group of people saying, Lean, it's a wonderful vehicle, and we're not going anywhere with it. And I said, well, maybe because, and I started to share this, and they said, come in, tell us more, be part of our team, help us evolve Lean. Let me tell you one story. Some of you may know a gentleman by the name of Richard Coley. He used to be here in the Portland, Vancouver area. He got a job in, you know him, it's a dear friend of mine. I met him here. He had his own consulting company, Quality Lean Consulting Company, and he read my book, and we got connected, and we started to explore. Then he got a job in Portland, Maine. They like to say the original Portland, but we can debate. And he was in a healthcare organization, and he was brought in to bring lean principles into their organization to help turn things around. And they had one clinic, especially they called the model line clinic. It was really the experimental. They said, you guys are screwing up so bad, you can't make anything happen. We can experiment with you. If you figure out the solution, we'll take it every place else, right? And if you don't, no loss, you're already messed up anyway. And so he brought me in, and we used that particular clinic to apply the living organization as a platform. And that's the way I look at it. It's a platform on which you can build other things. And we started with, what do you think the first thing we looked at in the organization? Purpose. What's that? Purpose? Context, the purpose. And we did it in a rather interesting way, right? Since I believe, as Ernest said, organizations are living entities, I asked the management team, and they asked their people to go through the similar exercise. Who is this person? What's its name? Is it male or female? What's its personality? Is it extroverted? Is it an ENFP, an INTP? What's its personality? Now you can begin to imagine, if you approach an engagement that way, people are going to start thinking about what they're here for in a whole different way. And then we began to apply things like 5S. We walked around the environment, what's the energy in the field. We talked about, all right, here's something, a couple of interesting things. They named it, they said it was a female, whose name was Alexandria, but they called it Alex. Because Alex was really a little bit more masculine in its nature. Had a lot of feminine. They recognized they were extroverted, very amongst themselves, but when it came to the external world, they were quite introverted. And so they began to look at relationships in a whole different way. They looked at their environment in a whole different way. Right? We started with C. Out of C, we naturally evolved to R. And then the activities they did were just intuitively obvious. And yes, they used the lean tools, and they measured and all that, but they measured things that were important to them. Like, what is our relationship with our customers, with the clients that were coming in? How is the environment setting alone affecting the customers? So they measured those things. They measured things that really heightened the context, not just optimizing the activity. In 6 months, which was about the time of the thing, we finished the engagement. They went from 3 years of negative profit in essence. And 3 months after that, they started to turn around and they were making a profit, and they became the fastest growing positive cash flow clinic in the whole system, just 3 months. And it was all because of the attitude. Now, they had a lot of other things they had to do. There was a lot of still more potential. We had a whole list of activities. But that's the power of starting with context and looking at the organization much more holistically than just the sequence of activities. Evolved Lean, as the Lean PDX leadership team is proposing to the community, is to begin to bring Lean principles from a much more complete, much more holistic point of view. Now the question is, does that excite this community? Got us excited, but that's 8 of us. What about the 300 rest of you? And how do you feel about it? Is this something you want to engage with? Is this something you want to adopt? And if so, how? What does this organization evolve into? And Tom, it's now up to you.
Super. Thank you. These 4 people are an enormous amount to slide. It doesn't always show.